Hey everyone! Today I want to talk about Blonde Roots by Bernardine Evaristo. So Blonde Roots is a satire that's kind of alternative history. So the idea is that Africa colonized the rest of the world instead of Europe, and Africans enslaved Europeans. Right off the bat, I was very intrigued by the concept of this book and what exactly the author would do. The world inside the book isn't exactly our world. There's a map at the front of the book that gives you an idea of the world, but I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, but you can kind of get an idea. You have the Americas here, and then Europe, and Africa up here. And so obviously Africa and Europe are like switched on the map, but you also have UK of Great Ambosa, which has the capital Londolo, like London. So if you can see, it's basically the UK. But it's next to Africa, and it's part of Africa. And this is like the main African country that the book centers around. The way Evaristo used the concept of this book was brilliant, I think. Obviously you have racism directed at white people in the book because they're the slaves, but the way, the parallels that are drawn between the racism in this book and real life racism, and the ways that it's changed to fit the alternative history, but at the same time very much matches real world racism, was done really well, I think. The main character in Blonde Roots is Doris, and Doris is born in Europa to a peasant family. They farm the land for a lord and everything. So the same traditional European lifestyle exists in this book. Europe's culture and Africa's culture is still essentially the same in this book. The difference just comes with colonization. So Doris is born into a peasant family, and then she's kidnapped as a child by slave traders and becomes a slave. She's taken to the West Japanese Islands, which are this book's version of the West Indies, and so then you follow her as a slave. The book starts later in her life when she's been a slave for a very long time and she's an adult, but you get flashbacks to her childhood and when she was taken by the slave traders, and a lot of basically her entire life is explored over the course of the book, but not necessarily in chronological order. Honestly, I was really impressed with how many different parts of the slave experience the book was able to explore fully with one main character. Parts of the book are also in the point of view of Doris's slave owner, who is a very powerful businessman in Africa, and he owns a plantation in the Americas, but he lives in Africa, and he publishes a pamphlet, I think it is called, probably is a pamphlet, that promotes slavery, defends slavery, and you see parts of that pamphlet and other things he writes in the book. So you do get some of his point of view through his writing about why slavery is right. And I know in the Discord chat, some people were saying they didn't enjoy those parts, which I do get, because they're in the point of view of a slave owner, and obviously he says a lot of very bad things. Bad seems like the wrong word, because obviously, he's defending slavery. You're reading a defense of slavery. But I do think that it was important in the context of the book, and I do really think it helped with like the satire aspect of the book. Like it gives you a clear-cut idea of like how the slave owners are justifying it to themselves, and I do think that it was really important. And I don't want to say that I enjoyed those parts, but like from the point of view of the book and the story, I think that they were very important, and I'm glad that they're there. Unsurprisingly, considering the subject matter, parts of this book are very difficult to read. Like most of the book is very difficult to read from an emotional point of view, but also as someone with a blood phobia and who's rather squeamish, there was one scene in particular that I almost could not get through because of like the gore in the scene. Now, it's definitely important to the story, and it's very, very powerfully written. Like how powerful it felt was part of the reason why I had so much trouble getting through it. Like I think that Evaristo did a really good job with that scene, but it was a struggle to read it. So that's something to keep in mind going in. Most of it is emotionally difficult to read, and there are a few parts that are a little gory, but there's one part in particular that was really bad, that for me, that really affected me. But the violence in the story is definitely there for a reason. Like all of the violence that happens there's a point to it. There's a reason it's there. So there's nothing that's like just there for violence sake. There's so much more I could say about this book, but honestly, I think like I don't want to say too much because I feel like it's so much more powerful when you read it yourself, and I've already probably said more than I should have or that I had planned to, because I think this is the best book I've read in a while. I really, really, again, I hate to say enjoyed because of the subject matter, and it's not easy to read through the entire book, but like I do really view it as an important book, especially with everything going on in the world, but especially the United States recently. I really, really, really want more people to read this book. The writing is fantastic. The world building is fantastic. I will stop talking before I give more about the book away. So I will see you guys later. Bye.